It's the county conversation, and this week, joining myself, Cameron Ponsonby, and Nick Friend to celebrate Gloucestershire's miraculous T20 Blast victory, we have the 2024 leading wicket taker, the leading seamer in Blast history, and all in all, Gloucestershire icon, David Payne. David, first of all, thank you for joining us. And second of all, I wanted to read back a quote to you that you said after, kind of in the moments after the victory on Saturday in Edgbaston, that through various points in my career, I've been questioned for why I haven't left. But it's always been for nights like this. It might take a little bit longer than moving to a different county, but it makes it so much more worthwhile. Can you just expand on that a little bit and tell us what it has meant to you and to the group to have won this trophy?
Yeah, so I guess my whole time at Gloucestershire, I've always seen it as like a bit of a project. I think at a smaller club like that, that's what it's about. Like I mentioned, it's almost like you're not necessarily going to be in positions to compete for trophies every year. It's a bit more of, you got to wait a few years, build the youngsters up, get players through the academy, try and work hard to get them to a level where you can compete. Because I guess the big difference is you can't just go out and buy the best players and bring in. We're not a county that everyone wants to come and play for, that sort of attraction. So we've got to be a lot smarter and with signings and, as I say, and trying to bring academy players through. I guess I've always personally enjoyed that challenge. It's certainly not always been easy. We've had some really tough times across it, but I think I've always thought I don't want to run away from those tough times. I've always thought, well, you know what, it's just because it's got tough, you don't then shy away and just move somewhere else. I've always thought, no, it's just part and parcel that you then graft through the hard times to then really earn the good times. And I guess so then when you get a day like Saturday, that's why it feels so much better in a way, because you know how much you've put in to get there.
Was this meant to be one of the good times, as it were? Because you've had such a crazy campaign. I couldn't quite work out whether you guys felt like you were potentially favourites going into it, or this was a year where you were going to win it. For those who won't be across the ins and outs of kind of Gloucestershire's group stage, you've had, which I don't blame people if they're not. You've had two kind of last ball losses. There was a Sussex one on a bye, and the last ball, Benny Howell hit a six. You tied against Surrey, where you defended six off the last over. You yourself had a last ball six to win it at Gloucestershire. There was so much kind of carnage in your group stage. You qualified after your final game. You needed another result to guarantee that you could make it to the quarterfinals. Then you defended 138 in the quarterfinal. Yeah, do you guys finish the campaign going like, we're the best team in the country, or do you go, blimey, like that everything's gone well there, and what an amazing however many months?
No, so I think entering the campaign, going right back to kind of pre-season talks and talking about your squad and your hopes for the campaign. Ironically, I think we, amongst some of the more senior players, looking at the group and looking, you compare yourself to groups we've had previously when we had your Clingers and Ties and Benny Howells and a much more experienced group, and we're making regular quarterfinals and stuff. I was a bit more unsure, I guess, of where this group was at. You've got huge talent in the room, but when you've got the mixture, we have some experience and some lesser experience, you're a bit unsure necessarily where you're going to rank. But certainly, I think that meant we thought, right, can we sneak in the back door a little bit? Can we, we're going to aim for fourth. If we can, you look at our South group and you've got your Surreys, your Somersets, Essex, Hampshires, it's such a strong group. And then I think, Sussex performed unbelievably this year. I wouldn't have had them where they finished this year. So, it's always going to be such a strong group in South. So I think, as I say, certainly my goal was like, right, can we just make it into the knockouts by, even if we grab that fourth spot, that'll be a hell of an achievement for us. And like I say, the campaign, ironically, had huge memories of our 2015 campaign in the One Day Cup. We had so much similarities, like you say, so many last ball finishes. I don't know whether that played on the mind of is this actually going to work out for us? But then watching, the final group stages, we did what we as much as we could do at the back end. But like you say, we still needed dominoes to fall in our place. We still needed Hampshire to win. And when that fell into place, I guess it just felt like, oh well, Lady Luck's on our side a bit. Maybe someone wanted us to make it through. And I think as soon as then you get to the knockouts, I think then you've always got a bit of belief and confidence. It's just anyone's game. All you got to do is win that game on that night, and you're through again. And it's not a case of there's 14 games again or whatever. It becomes a little bit like anyone's game. So going to Edgbaston for the quarterfinal, I think we always felt belief, like I say, that it was just all we got to do is win on that day. If we're the better team on the day, then we get through. And I think that's what we did. We were just very clear and obviously a very clinical bowling performance. And then much the same on finals day. I think something that always seems to work in our favour, I think, is the underdog status. I think, again, going in Saturday, I wouldn't have thought many people would have given us a chance, I imagine. But again, I actually don't, I've got no evidence to say people were tipping us as the underdogs. I think it's just our mindset that we think that's what people are going to be saying about us. So it just works well, as I say, for our mindset that then we always have that mentality of we're going to prove people wrong.
You've had, I don't know, I feel like county cricket clubs don't often get a lot of coverage across the course of a year. Like you've had, I don't know, like you've had a lot go on. Like how, whether it's, if you go back to like even last December with Dale Bengstall leaving for Lancs, Mark Lane coming in, but sort of starting in March. We lost Ben Wells to heart condition at the start of the season. CEO resigns, quite a fractious AGM. There's the Aaron Banks stuff, the financial losses, the Champo winless run. Like you've had to contend with a lot of stuff that, 95% of which there is all off-field stuff. Like how, I know everyone always says like, oh, we just get on with it and, you do the on-field bit. But like, how have you done that? Because it can't be as straightforward as everyone just going, just control the controllables. Like, how do you both get on with that, but then sort of turn that into, I don't know, like then have the year you've had?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because, like you say, the last couple of years were really difficult and really challenging for the group. And I think most of the post-match interviews after Saturday's win, I think I talked a lot about being just incredibly proud of the group. And I think when I reflected on it, not only was it about, their performances and how they won, it was thinking about what they've had to go through in the last couple of years. And like you say, actually still think a lot of things going on during the winter. And even, it's all still going on in the background, I guess. There's still a lot going on. But actually, the group, you wouldn't know that actually that stuff is going on, I guess is what I'm referring to, is like, inside that changing room, all they've worried about is their cricket, and they are just training, doing their things, doing what they need to do to try and win games of cricket. And I think for the more senior players like myself and Tom Smith, we spent probably a lot more time in the winters and stuff and worrying about this stuff and trying to get our heads around it and talking to people and finding out. Whereas actually, I think the youngsters, nicely almost, they just cared about the cricket. It's a little bit more confusing for them of what's going on, and I think they were just more like, well, I'm just going to concentrate on my cricket. And I think then that resonated through the whole change room, and as we got into the summer, I almost got to a point where I've kind of forgotten about it. And even though stuff is still going on, it's not been our concern in a way. I guess we've not worried about it, we've just worried about the cricket. And as I say, I think that's why I'm incredibly proud of the way the group's handled themselves through everything.
Is it almost a sort of secondary role that you just know is yours to take on as a senior player, that you've got to, sort of like do a bit of, not digging, but like find stuff out so that others don't have to? Is that part of the job almost, when you're particularly at a smaller county, inverted commas?
Yeah, definitely. I think mine's a twofold because I'm also the PCA rep for our county. So I think then that naturally works in that role, but also certainly as a senior player, just the same thing like you touched on. So then, we certainly had conversations with, leadership roles and leaders in the club during the winter to find out what was going on and get information. And then I was feeding that back to the group at various stages to keep them in the loop of what's going on. Because, at one point there was all these rumours about going bankrupt and the county, being no longer and those sorts of things. And that's really not easy to hear. So it's just making sure, that we've still got jobs and we're not in that sort of position, and that's always just hearsay. And so yeah, there was very much some, like you say, some roles of keeping the group in touch and making it and finding stuff out for them. But as I say, they took everything in their stride and nothing seemed to faze them.
Yeah. I don't know how to phrase this, and I don't know if there is an answer to this question or if there's anything in it. But you're Matt Taylor spent 2 games as an unused replacement player at London Spirit. Marshall Delaney was obviously at Oval Invincibles, didn't play, was injured for finals day and the quarter. You were the only player in that. You were the only player at finals day who's played a 100 game in that Gloucestershire side. I mean, this isn't a dig at 100 or a dig at analysts or anything. But what does it mean? Like when a team with is essentially a bunch of guys who spent the last month playing the One Day Cup and not the 100 can come and win the Blast, and particularly these last 3 games. I think it's the most dominant finals day performance in history, isn't it? 2 8-wicket wins, second team ever to take 20 wickets on finals day, fewest runs conceded to win it on finals day. You've done stuff that no one's done, and yet does it mean is there a is there a link there? Is there something that's gone wrong there, or is it
scouting's terrible?
That's
what I'm saying.
No, but
I don't know what they're doing.
Or is there another side to it, which is that you guys do essentially, you guys probably also benefit from having a lot of stability. And I think looking ahead to this weekend's One Day Cup final, Glamorgan would say that they lost 1 or 2 players to hundreds, and basically their season continued as normal in August, and with their 50 over side. Is it a bit of that for you guys, or I don't know, is that a thing at all?
I guess the first point I make is I've got a feeling there'll be a few more Gloucestershire players in the 100 next year. You sit in your own dressing rooms and you watch 100 drafts and you watch various franchise drafts, and we've had players who, have been a bit miffed, certainly this summer, that they didn't make the 100 cut and thought they had a chance of being in there. And then obviously we do the same thing like you're saying. We question, is that the analyst, is that the coach? And from within the tournament, I think you get a bit of everything. I'm not going to name any names, but I certainly heard at one point when Matt Taylor was in the kind of in and around it, and people talking about as a replacement or as a wild card, and someone told me that one of the coaches had never heard of him, and that was why they weren't going to go for him. And that sort of thing I think is difficult to hear, because you can't. I feel like we should do your scouting a bit better, and the county game, discover who these players are who are having good years, or everyone's got to start somewhere. You've got to take a punt on someone, or it's not even a punt necessarily. But you say the year Matty Taylor was having, I didn't see it as a punt. If someone needed a bowler, that he was the man in form, and yeah, he might not have played in the 100 before or done, but he's improved hugely year on year, and then this year showed he's just taken another huge leap in the right direction. And as I say, I think all I can hope for going forward is that people now, you get on that sort of stage, I guess finals day, that helps. And hopefully now people will take a little bit more notice maybe of the Gloucestershire changing, because I think there's another 4 or 5 players that could easily step up to that 100 level.
Does it cause an internal sort of inferiority thing, or a complex at all? When you look at, when you do step out and play against Surrey, Somerset, who are essentially 100 lineups, or does that sort of feed back into what you were saying before about being comfortable in your skin as this sort of underdog side?
Yeah, I think you always recognise your opponents and know your tough fixtures, and like you say, your Surreys and Somersets are always a game where you're taking on. We always call Surrey. Everyone always calls Surrey the All Stars, and they're the international lineup, and Somerset are probably the benchmark of, domestically. We just know they're a fantastic outfit and they cover all bases. But I think having that feeling within your own dressing room, you've got players hungry to prove everyone wrong, but they actually should be the ones in those franchise leagues and in the 100. And I think that just fuels a massive fire that, as I say, they were always wanting to prove people wrong. And I think that's hopefully what they've done this year, and as I say, hopefully leads to much more recognition for themselves.
I like the idea of your kind of potentially a growth of your role as Gloucestershire PCA reps, just to take kind of posters around of the lads. and just be like, have you heard of this guy? It's quite bowls him quite well actually. We gave him a deal. That's remarkable. And one, it's kind of flipped from, something that was an incredibly emotional and kind of poignant part of Saturday was kind of the footage and the images of David Lawrence and James Bracey at the end of the day with the trophy. David Lawrence is obviously a Gloucestershire legend. Like, how much did that mean to the current group of players to give David Lawrence, the kind of a Gloucestershire legend, a day like that?
Yeah, I guess, like you say, it said it all in the photos, really. And yeah, I think it's. Someone asked me this the other day, and it's one of those where it's like, it feels like, I don't know, it's probably such a small thing, considering everything that he's battling at the moment, everything he's going through. But hopefully that small thing on that day has just given him a tiny bit of happiness in a moment, with everything to say that everything's going on. So yeah, I think as a group we can feel incredibly proud of what we achieved, and to be able, like you say, for James to be able to go and have that moment and share the trophy with him will be something we'll never forget. And I'm sure, those photos, I feel like they're the sorts of photos that need to be around the ground now, or something in the change room, something to remind us of that. And yeah, hopefully we see Sid down the ground, be able to almost relive the day with him again as well. I think that'd be really nice to see him since Saturday, and we've all had a bit of time. And then, yeah, I'd love to see him again, because actually on that day I didn't manage to see him at that point. But yeah, as I say, to then see that James and some of the lads did manage to go up and see him and share the trophy with him, I think is incredibly special.
And because he came back to the club as president, I think in 2022, kind of, is there a relationship with the players, or I can imagine in a lot of counties, and not just in cricket, the kind of generations can also kind of almost pass each other by. But coming in his role, coming back to the club, is he someone who's been very prominent around the club, and do the current group know kind of Sid as Sid and not just this guy who used to play however many years ago?
They do. I wouldn't say we see him absolutely loads, but certainly he's one of those guys that when you do see him around the ground, people stop and have a chat with him, and he's just the loveliest bloke. Always got time for everyone. So let's say, so when he is around, absolutely everyone's always having conversations with him and checking in with him. And yeah, as I say, he's got time for everyone. So he's just a fantastic guy.
And in terms of like your campaign this year, first 5 matches, you're 1 win in 5, 1 win, 3 losses and a tie. Then that flipped. You had 9 wins in 12. Like, was there a change? Was there a distinct change? Because I mean, if I'd played 5 matches and won one of them, I wouldn't be going, lads, we're on here. This is our year. We're going to win it.
No, and I think we started really well, didn't we? We started with that Essex game, so I think that gave us huge confidence, belief, and then I'm trying to remember I remember one of those losses. I think the second game was that Sussex one that I think the second or third game, and that was the last ball game, and a game that we should have actually cruised. If anyone had watched that game, we dropped 4 dollies, and
Were they off your bowling? That sounds like a bowler who remembers it off their bowling.
No, actually, none of them off me. I think potentially all 3 of them were certainly off March and Delanga, and possibly all 4. But so I remember he was absolutely ticking at it. But yeah, I think again we walked off that game, even though you lost, saying, well, we should have absolutely cruised that game. We were the better side pretty much for the whole game, and actually, if it wasn't for our drop catches, we would have won. Which I don't feel like you can say very often about a game of cricket. It was actually just 4 drop catches. Other than that, we were great with the ball, great with the bat. And like I said, and then there was a tie at the Oval. So I think we always knew when we were. I think even if we were losing, I feel like in my mind at the moment they weren't huge losses to make you think like we're absolutely nowhere here. We're not scoring enough, not taking wickets. I think they were probably losses where you think actually we're performing all right. We're just small little moments we're missing. And I certainly remember actually at some point, it might have been halfway through, and we got together as a group in the change room, and we reflected on, I'll call it the first half, as I say. And yeah, I guess our big reflection at that point was that we feel like we're batting really well, we're bowling really well. If we look back, there have been a couple of games where actually it's purely been our fielding has let us down. And that was probably maybe the one conscious thing we said, look, if we pick that up, if we can improve that slightly and get that back to the standard we know we can, then we know we're going to be right in the mix. And yeah, we probably did from a point, we probably put a little more emphasis on our fielding in training. And just, I think sometimes when you recognise that and put a bit more emphasis on it and say, like, we want more from our fielding, then it heightens everyone's concentration, I guess, on that element in the game. So actually, it could be a thing, that was the thing that changed, and it then just completed the performances.
It's funny. So his last 3 games, you couldn't have fielded any better. There was one very tough half chance went down the final, but otherwise, you don't know. And I know everyone is these days, but like, you're very conscious of hotspot positions, certain fielders in certain spots. I think Miles Hamilton the most catches in the competition, with Bancroft just behind him. Like, it looked that like you. I reckon he probably created 21 chances and took 20 of them on Saturday. I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, and that's where we want to be. That's the sort of standards we want from the group. And like you say, those two drive those standards. They're probably our best 2 fielders. So like you say, we certainly always, or they're always putting themselves in the hot spots. But from last year, again, it was something we highlighted. It was just, I think we'd had a few youngsters come through, and but as a group in general, we kind of said our fielding is not up to the standard we want to, and to move ourselves forward as a group across the winter, it's something we need to improve. And I look at Ben Charles as one player who struggled a bit last year, but actually this year then found himself at sometimes in hot spots, or certainly in strong boundary positions, and he did fantastic this year. And that is something he hugely improved, and something I said to him, that is going to only help your cause for franchise cricket and the 100 stuff, because just being able to, you always need 2 strings to your bow, I guess. And even I think fielding can easily be forgotten about, but actually if you're someone who can whack it, but they're also he's also a gun fielder, it gives you a much bigger chance. So little things like that. And I look at our group now, and I looked at it on Saturday, like you say, and it just felt like the Gloucestershire of old, and you can kind of rest easy with the fielding. You're not worrying about anyone. Like you say, it was a pretty perfect performance.
I remember speaking to you at the Oval after the tie, and you were. I know this was during the 1 from 5 bit, but you were quite bullish then, like about. I guess more than anything, it was about how you were competing. I think it's fair to say you probably competed with every single team at some point in the group stage. You were never blown out of the water. So when you lost off the last ball, tying at the Oval, chasing 190 against Somerset. Like, even when you weren't in this position, you I don't know, like, you're quietly confident.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's interesting because going into the season, I was genuinely completely unsure when it felt like a little bit of new groups and of where we would be at. Knowing, although you always know and you've got so much talent, but it's just like, right, can that talent put it all together in 14 group games and then do it in the knockouts and stuff like this? So it was. I don't know whether it helped because I was just in that space of like, well, anything could happen. We could finish top, we could finish 4th, we could finish bottom, almost like that sort of if we don't perform. But that's why I think, as I say, and I've said many times now, that I feel incredibly proud of the group, because there were so many moments, I think, where you looked at in the past that, well, I don't know if it's looking at the past, but we had so many challenging moments, I guess, and it wasn't always on the same individual. It wasn't always the same player having to step and win us games. I always think of the Somerset chases, and Ollie Price and Ben Charlesworth, relatively inexperienced in T20 cricket. Both times, it wasn't just the fact they got us over the line; it's how they got us over the line, and sort of looked like you were watching 2 guys that had played 200 T20s and knew exactly how they were going to do it, and the way they paced it, and the shots they played. And I think it was nights like that were huge in terms of the belief and confidence for the group, because then you knew you had these guys coming at the back end. It wasn't always going to be on Jack Taylor, we need Jack to finish the game for us. It was something like, oh my God, Charlie can do it, or Ollie can do it. We've actually got we've got 3 blokes now who can finish a game for us. And then with the ball, similarly, it was like the reverse when you're trying to defend low ones, and like you say, you got a tight one at the Oval on a decent wicket, and Josh Shaw, again, I'm not saying he's inexperienced, but hasn't played vast amounts of T20 cricket, and he's bowling fantastic death overs at the Oval under real big pressure. And Matt Taylor having the year doing exactly the same, both those guys stepping up on real pressure situations, allowing things like Jack to be able to go, Payne can bowl 3 at the top. We don't need 2 at the death from Payne because we've actually Shawsey and Maddie can. And putting that sort of belief in them, and I think everything when I'm almost thinking as I'm talking now and looking and going, all that stuff, how much confidence that must have given them and the group to be able whether we bat or bowl first, we've got guys that can get the job done.
How everyone's always talked about Mark Lane as this great sort of white ball mind. Obviously won everything there was to win as a player with you guys, and mad for that 17 years ago he obviously was head coach at finals day with Glos back then as well. I mean, I know we spoke before finals. I think you talked about the sort of just the role he played, just like essentially calming everyone down a bit, and I guess like that quiet confidence you've given everyone. But like from a purely like white ball cricket perspective, and his knowledge of that, I don't know, like what's he like? What little bits has he added to what you guys have? I don't know. That's what you guys already knew.
Yeah, as I say, I think I've said a couple of times, it wasn't like he came up with anything drastically new or anything like that. Yeah, it was. I think one of the main crucial focuses was being really good at home, and recognising, if you can win your 7 home group games and be really strong at home, you're always going to be there and thereabouts in the knockouts. You pick up a point or 2 away from home, whilst being strong at home, say you're always going to be there and thereabouts. So I think there was certainly a recognition of that, and then looking at how are we going to be good at Bristol? What do we need to, what is it that makes us perform well at Bristol, and little things like that, and then also looking at last year and what were our failings, and so I think one of the things we looked to do was actually make the boundary sizes a little bit smaller than I think sometimes at Bristol you can find. We use the entire playing field, might have a short side, but then might have like a 90-metre hit one way, and actually going, when you look at our group now and you'd say, I think entering the tournament, or you might not say it now, but entering the tournament, I think we felt possibly that our bowling was our slightly stronger suit, and say, well, actually, if we make it 65 all the way around and play a bit more like that on smaller boundaries, then it's giving our batters a bit more of a chance to clear the ropes, and back our bowlers to defend. And I think that was obviously a formula that seemed to work for us, and also just playing on those kind of a bit drier Bristol wickets, and that was obviously something that seemed to work well for us on Saturday. That played into our hands a little bit, and that we just know if you've got something that is a bit drier and it might hold, I guess it's an outfit that just know what to do.
On a kind of personal level, I remember speaking to you a number of years ago, and you kind of said, I don't know if you remember this, that you judge yourself by how many games you're above or below 32 of your 4 overs. Like that's kind of, there's so many variables, you're so much out of your control. So you just kind of over the course of the season, if you've gone at less than 8, it's more than you have, like, sweet, that's okay. When you then, that's like a lovely attitude to have in case things go badly. But if this year something's gone incredibly well, surely you also want to be able to hold on to something that's been different from you and you've changed. Like, have you changed something? Has you been bowling in a particular different way that you feel has been coming out really well? Or have things just fallen into place and next year you might average 70 and go at 15s and you just have to chill out, basically? Like,
I hope that's not the case, but
yeah, me too. Yeah.
I think a bit of both, really. That I think I'm in a real focus on the new ball coming into the year. I did a lot of work on wanting to swing it like I knew I could. I think in previous years I've probably not swung it as consistently and as well as I did this year. Which might sound, I've always been able to swing the ball, but I think I've quite often, sometimes even swung a couple of balls, but been like, no, I'm going to go straight into my cutters and straight into my skills. And this year was almost maybe a different mindset that I'm going to attack, be a bit more, I don't know, Red Bull-like, and I'm going to swing this ball for 2 or 3 overs and try and nick people off and try and get them LBW and bowled, not try to do them with a slower ball on a dry one at Bristol and get them to sky one. So there was certainly that change, that emphasis, as I say, on the power play, and that was really pleasing how well that worked for me. So that will be certainly continuation, because I don't think that's something, all the batters can know that I'm trying to do that is kind of irrelevant. It's just about the execution. If I can swing it in, and as the way I did this year, then I think I'm always going to be pretty effective with the new ball.
You just have to get your Red Bull fix.
Exactly. Well, that's right. I do still when I need to have a bowl and stuff, and if the group are getting ready for the Red Bull game, then I'll more than happily put a Red Bull in my hand and bowl at them, because I said to them all year, I was like, it's no different. It's the swinging ball. It's a new ball, and I'm not going to look to do anything different. So it all felt like it was power play bowling to me, really. So that was really helpful. But I always think, I don't know, you need a game of cricket. You always need a little bit of luck on the way, because you need sometimes someone to take a spectacular catch. Or I've always said, as a bowler, really, you can only control the ball coming out of your hand and where you try to execute it. After that, it's completely out of control what happens. You can bowl your best ball and it go for 6. You can bowl your best ball, you take a wicket. It's actually completely in the batter's control what happens next. I always think there's an element of luck, but I probably also created some of my own luck this year by how well I bowled.
Nice. And just finally, kind of in the it's a Wednesday, with 4 days after the event. Like, how has the time been since? Like, what's the night like? On the one hand, I'm kind of in my head, if Surrey win it, they're all on the piss, and it's just like, the big lads have won it, we're going to go and celebrate. With Gloucestershire, I can almost imagine everyone just kind of holding each other and just kind of celebrating and just being like, well done, everyone, we're so happy. How has it been?
Well, I think on the night it's probably both of those things. Like, it's intermittently
Wonderful,
screaming and hugging each other, and sat there, and there were a lot of cuddles and a lot of hugs and a lot of
the good stuff,
embracing each other,
modern men,
really, and being proud of each other. And then in between that, sculling a beer. And Tom's, I'm sure that there's photos constantly coming out on social media, and Tom Smith spraying a champagne bottle, going absolutely berserk, was one of my favourite moments. One of those moments where you've been sat there and he's quite he can be quite a quiet character at times, and that sort of to himself, but then suddenly unleashed this beast with him and spraying this champagne bottle all around the changing room and going absolutely nuts. There was a lot of that mixed in as well. So it was an amazing night, as I say, of both being able to really celebrate with each other and be proud of each other. And it is a close knit gesture, as I say. There's lots of hugs, lots of being together, but then there's also there were a lot of chants and a lot of sing songs and a lot of alcohol, I guess.
And a great advert for not having to play Red Bull cricket 3 days later as well. In your case, you jet off to Italy.
That's obviously one of the perks. And as I say, I don't know, this is how, in the best case scenario, I imagine my year to go. But I guess when you do those sorts of things and you imagine the best case scenario, you always think, well, it's not really going to pan out quite like that. But I haven't really had a year go nearly as perfect as this, I guess. And then, as I said to you before, I think it's not only just me who really fights this career, plays this career. Your family come with you on the journey, and I think during the 100, my wife had to take a lot of the slack with the kids, and I always really appreciate her for that. So it meant when we finished the 100, we did have a look of where we could get a family holiday in as soon as possible when the season ends, for me to repay the thanks to her and to the family for the sacrifices they make during the summer. So we will be flying to Italy this afternoon to get a week away with the family. And as I say, I do feel like she's earned that, really, and probably earned that myself as well after a fantastic summer.
David, thank you very much for your time. Best part of the show now, I get to do an ad read. Nobody covers county cricket like the Cricketer, and you can get access to our coverage of all 18 teams online for as little as £3.99 a month. Our own top team of county champions have now won the outstanding online coverage of domestic cricket prize, the ECB Domestic Cricket Journalism Awards, for 6 years running. David, thank you very much. Congratulations again. Nick, thank you very much. Hey, we've got 2 of these episodes left for the season. We'll speak to you and see you again next week.
Not counting down, are you?
No, that sounded worse than I meant it to be. I just felt like just letting people know.
20 down, 2 to go.